Thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts football podcast, where we discuss the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football. As always, I'm your host, Jeremiah, and we are back again today for another action-packed show of the GSMC football podcast. Well, we had a lot going on yesterday, especially with the franchise tag deadline coming up, and one of the franchise players for the Steelers was actually extended for a really big contract. And that is none other than Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown and the Steelers reached an agreement on a 4-year, $68 million extension that will make him the highest paid receiver in the NFL. So with this contract extension now, Brown will be tied with the Steelers through the 2021 season. He tweeted about the new deal, but I do think this is something that the Steelers needed to get done. Antonio Brown has been regarded the best receiver in the NFL, probably one of the best players in the NFL in general. And this was one of the most important things to get done this offseason, especially with the quarterback that was contemplating retirement. So, they brought Antonio Brown back. They franchise tagged Le'Veon Bell, which I will get to in a little bit. So they got the two core pieces that were so valuable to this offense for the past for the past couple years. I like it. And, Antonio Brown, he really outplayed his contract. I really think he deserves it. But let's go over a little bit of the details a little bit. Brown was actually going to make $18.5 million in the first 3 years of the contract. And he's going to make $12.5 million in the fourth year of the contract. So the deal includes a $19 million signing bonus. So, looks like Antonio Brown will play into his 30s as a Steeler, and I'm not surprised that this thing get done. I don't think the Antonio Brown deal will hurt the Steelers. I don't think it will hurt them to get deals done with most of their impact players. Le'Veon Bell specifically was a guy that they needed to re-sign this offseason, but they did hit him with the franchise tag. So, maybe, honestly though, I'm not surprised by this. I'm really glad he got the deal done. But I feel like he may have lost a little bit of money, in the deal a little bit because of the off-the-field antics and, the social media live streaming. So maybe that he did get a hefty payday, but I feel like he would have got a little bit more if he would have not done stuff like that. So, anyways, it was a restructured deal based on his previous salary. Brown has been one of the key pieces for the Steelers for the past several years. His previous deal was a 5-year, $42 million contract that he signed in 2012. And Antonio Brown was the first player in Steelers history to finish with 1,000 receiving yards and 10 receiving touchdowns in 3 straight seasons. So, I just wanted to point out, what if Antonio Brown never posted that Facebook Live video? What if he never did that? Do you think that would have... Do you think he would have got a little bit more money than that? I think he got enough money, to be honest with you. I think he got a great deal. I think someone that really wants to play with the same team his entire career. He's been really great, coming out of Central Michigan as a 6th-round pick. It's been really great. But I do think that locking up Antonio Brown long-term, I think it was something that was bound to happen. And I do think it will, kind of make Ben Roethlisberger come back, because he was contemplating retirement. But another player that the Steelers wanted to bring back was Le'Veon Bell. And Le'Veon Bell was placed on the exclusive franchise tag on Monday. The exclusive offer, or the exclusive tender, with that designation, Bell can only negotiate with the Steelers and is not able to sign an offer sheet with another team. So this means that both sides will have until July 15th to work out a long-term contract. And if no deal is reached by then, Bell will play 2017 under the franchise tag. So the deadline for teams is tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. And Bell was looked upon as one of the top free agents that was going to be on the market. But I didn't think that the Steelers were going to let Bell walk. It was just there's no way. This guy's still young. He's about to be in the prime of his career if he's not already. He's only 25. No, there's no way the Steelers were going to let Bell walk. Well, Le'Veon Bell is 25. I think he became the best running back in the league. He averaged 157 yards from scrimmage per game. That's like the third best clip ever for a running back. And Le'Veon Bell, he's missed 17 games in his entire career so far, which was only been 4 years. He's on the field. When he's on the field, he plays more and contributes more than any other NFL running back. So, according to ESPN stats and information, Le'Veon Bell, since 2013, his per-game totals ranks first in snaps, touches, and scrimmage yards. And snaps is 54.5, touches 24.2, scrimmage yards 128.7. So all those are the most since 2013. So, you gotta ask yourself, Bell he was one of the reasons why this team has been successful. And I think if he hasn't been hurt throughout those games, I don't know, maybe the Steelers would have made a Super Bowl run. I don't know, there's no way to tell. But I do think there was no way the Steelers were going to let Le'Veon Bell walk. And the both sides have to work out a long-term. They have time to work out a long-term deal. But I don't know if Le'Veon Bell is going to get the long-term deal that he thinks he's going to get, because running backs just don't get a lot of long-term deals anymore. They just don't. I think the reason why Antonio Brown received the extension instead of Le'Veon Bell is because a receiver is extremely important in the passing first league. And Le'Veon Bell is one of the best running backs in the league, but when you have to make a decision on who to tie up long term, you got Antonio Brown, the best receiver in the league, and you got Le'Veon Bell, the best running back in the league. But you're playing in the NFL, which is known to be a passing league. So you got to figure out who is more valuable in the passing league, and that has to be Antonio Brown. And that's not disrespect to Le'Veon Bell. I think he's the best running back in the league. I think he's one of the best running backs we've seen, for the past couple of years. But I do think the Steelers wanted to tie up Antonio Brown long term because in case Ben Roethlisberger does walk out, I do think it's easier to build around a receiver than it is for a running back because of the passing first league. And don't get me wrong, a running back can help out a quarterback, especially if they're young. But I do think that long term you need that receiver. You need that game-breaking, game-changing receiver, and you need a star at that position, and that's what Antonio Brown is. Well, the deadline is coming up this Wednesday. But there were some teams that have placed some franchise tags on players, and I will discuss who those players were and those teams when we get back to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, and the franchise tag deadline is Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, and we had a lot of teams that got busy yesterday placing the franchise tag on certain players. Well, it looks like there's going to be a short end of pass rushers in the free agent market. Chargers place the franchise tag on Melvin Ingram. And the New York Giants did the same thing with Jason Pierre-Paul. So the Chargers, I'm not surprised that they placed the franchise tag on Melvin Ingram. I think that was the thing to do. I just couldn't see the Chargers let Melvin Ingram walk. The Los Angeles Chargers, I think I said San Diego in the segment, but the Los Angeles Chargers, what they did place Melvin Ingram, I believe, on the exclusive tag. So the two sides have until July 15th to negotiate a multi-year contract. And, if no agreement is reached, Ingram will play under the franchise tag tenor of $14.1 million. So, for the LA Chargers, they needed to get one of their stars on defense back. And, Ingram had his best season, 2016. He had 8 sacks. He had 19 quarterback hits, 10 tackles for loss, 4 forced fumbles, and 5 passes defended. So, he was one of the best defensive players of the year. And, you got him along with Joey Bosa, who won Rookie of the Year. So that's a talented offense, talented pass rush right there. And, they're going to be very important for this LA Chargers defense making a transition to a new city. So, I'm not surprised, and I think that was the thing to do for the LA Chargers to place Melvin Ingram on the franchise tag. And as for the Giants, I'm not surprised by this either. I do think that this was the thing to do. I think the franchise tag on Jason Pierre-Paul is not surprising to a whole lot of people. I just didn't think the Giants were going to let him walk. The sides do have until July 15th to work out a long-term agreement. So, of course, like I said previously, if no deal was reached, Pierre-Paul will play under the franchise tag this year. So, Jason Pierre-Paul has stated he wants a longer deal. He doesn't want to play on a 1-year contract. He said countless times again, after the Giants lost to the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs, he said he's not playing on no 1-year deal. He says he's proved it. He says he's shown it. He said there's really not another guy like me doing out there with 7.5 fingers, which is true. There's no one like him doing it. Pierre-Paul is only 28. I still think he has a lot of years left of him, and I don't think the Giants want to tie him up long term. I think Pierre-Paul, he wants a huge payday, and I don't think the Giants are ever going to get to him. Because remember how Pierre-Paul lost one finger? It was that July 4th accident, and, I think the Giants wanted him to prove that he can still be the same player after that, and he was capable of it. He proved it last year in a $10 million deal. He established himself as a very important player for the Giants defense. He had 7 sacks. He was tied for the NFL league with 8 batted passes in 12 games before he had to get hernia surgery that ended his season. So, Pierre-Paul has shown that he is a strong pass rusher. He's strong against the run. He does have limitations with his hand, but, he has made the most of the situation. And he thinks he's earned a long-term deal that could lock him up long-term. And I do think he has earned a deal. He looks like he has went back to being a very good defensive player. But I just don't think the Giants really like him long-term. I think, Pierre-Paul wants a lot of money, and I don't think the Giants are willing to give him a lot of money. Maybe it's because if he gets a long-term deal, he will play into his 30s. Maybe that's the reason why they're scared. Maybe they don't think he can be consistent. I just don't think the Giants will give Jason Pierre-Paul a long-term deal. But he is he did establish himself as a very good player in the NFL last season. And, we're sticking to the theme of defensive players that got placed with the franchise tag, and that is the Arizona Cardinals. They placed the franchise tag on Chandler Jones. So he was actually the first player to draw the franchise tag this season. And, he established himself in this defense for Arizona. He wanted, I think he proved himself to be one of the best defensive players on this team after the New England Patriots did trade him in March. Jones had a great season for the Cardinals. He had 11 sacks, 15 tackles for loss. He forced 4 fumbles. And I do think with him and Marcus Golden, they're one of the top sack duos last season. And I do think they have a really good, I do think they're going to make a great impact again next season. I think this team's going to be more to be reckoned with on defense. I do think this team has something to prove. And, with Marcus Golden and Chandler Jones, they became the first pair of Cardinals teammates with double-digit sacks apiece since 1984, which was Al Baker and Curtis Greer. So, Chandler Jones, he was a very important part, not just for the defense, but Marcus Golden as well. So, when you have those two guys playing at a high level, this is going to be a good defense to be reckoned with next year. And I do think the Cardinals will be better. So, I kind of like the Cardinals a lot better heading to this year. They have to reach some deals with Calais Campbell, Kevin Minter, Tony Jefferson. They're all due to hit the open market, so locking up those guys is important for this defense, but Jones was the top priority for the Cardinals. And the Carolina Panthers, they used the non-exclusive franchise tag on Kawan Short. And with the non-exclusive tag, Short can actually sign an offer sheet with another team. So if another team has an offer sheet, he can pretty much sign it. And if the Panthers decide not to match, they can receive 2 first-round picks as compensation. So maybe that's the reason why they did it. But Panthers, of course, they can still sign Kawan Short to a long-term contract. And, his production did drop a little bit. He did have 11 sacks in 2015 in that Super Bowl year. And he only had 6 this past season. He wants to remain with the Panthers. So I do think that, a long-term deal is going to be possible for both sides. He's made the Pro Bowl in 2015 with this team. And Kawan Short wants a deal in the range of 17 per season. But I don't know if the Cardinals are willing to put up that much money for a guy whose production drops. So I do think if Kawan Short, if his production increases And if it gets close back to the 2015 level, I do think the Panthers will lock up Kawan Short long term. So it all depends on the year Kawan Short has. And, Ron Rivera did say that Short is too important of a player to not have Carolina re-signed. But, since 2013, Kawan Short has been a really important player for the Carolina Panthers defense. So I do think it all depends on the production of Kawan Short this season. So that's the way I can see the Panthers lock him up long term. They did lock up Mario Addison on a 3-year deal after leading the team in sacks last year. So, the defense for the interior defense is an important part for the Carolina Panthers to pretty much, for them to have really good production. And I do think if Kawan Short comes close to anyway in 2015, I do think maybe Mario Addison and Kawan Short, they're going to be a tough defense for opposing teams. All right, well, I'm going to take my last break, and I'm going to talk about a couple players who will probably not get franchise tag. I'm going to specifically talk about Kirk Cousins. And I'm going to talk about why. And there's a team that he wants to play for, and it's not the Washington Redskins. I'll tell you who that team is. And I'm going to talk about the NFL Combine. It does start today. Drills actually won't start till Thursday, I believe. But I will discuss that when I get back to the Guns to Me Concepts Football Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Well, with the franchise tag deadline coming soon, tomorrow, Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, one player that is slated to hit the open market, if he's not hit with the franchise tag, is Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins does not get franchise tag, he can talk to other teams. So the Redskins have until 4 p.m. tomorrow to designate the franchise tag on Cousins. So once Kirk Cousins signs the franchise tag, he can longer talk to other teams, but the Redskins have gave permission to Cousins to speak with another team and then try to work out a trade. And ESPN reported that Cousins will not sign a long-term deal if he were traded anywhere else except if it's with the San Francisco 49ers. So apparently Cousins loves the idea of playing for Kyle Shanahan. The 49ers is his preferred destination. He's going to cost a lot of money, but the 49ers have a lot of money in cap space. They have a lot of money to spend this offseason, so I do think they can get a deal done if both parties are interested. And Kirk Cousins said he loved playing for Kyle Shanahan. He was in the offensive system in Washington when Kyle Shanahan was the OC. He really likes the system. Shanahan is a detail-oriented coach, and that meshes well with Kirk Cousins. So if the Redskins decided to trade Cousins to another team that's not the 49ers, he's not going to sign with that team long term. So a lot of convincing will need to happen for Cousins to sign a deal. Cousins said he would not block a trade, but any team that were to trade for him, pretty much have to give him a whole lot to come back. So, this stance on Cousins could limit the market for Washington to work out a trade. But I do think that the 49ers and Cousins are a good pair. If the Niners don't make a contract offer to Cousins, or especially one that he doesn't like, and if they decide to pursue another quarterback, which could happen, Cousins, I don't think he will have any choice but to stay with Washington for one more year. Remember, the two sides will have until July 15th to work out a long-term contract if they use the franchise tag by Wednesday. Well, if and when the Redskins will place a franchise tag on Kirk Cousins, he will make $23.94 million under the tag, and next year, if he's tagged again, he will make up to $40 million. So Kirk Cousins has all the leverage here, and if the Redskins really want stability at quarterback, they have to lock up Kirk Cousins right now, because they're going to lose their quarterback to the 49ers if this doesn't happen. The Redskins, you guys have not had a quarterback in since the early 90s, maybe late 80s. I do think Kirk Cousins is a very important, valuable player for this organization, especially with him making the playoffs 2 years ago. And, you're in one of the most competitive divisions. You need a quarterback to compete. This is a quarterback that threw for almost 5,000 yards last year. So, Washington, you better lock him up, because he's gonna go to the West Coast and play for Kyle Shanahan. And I'm telling you right now, the 49ers will love to have Kirk Cousins as a quarterback. And Kirk Cousins, he's only 28? So he still has a lot of good years left in him. And I'm telling you right now, if Kirk Cousins does go to the 49ers, I do think that could play a part of getting a receiver in free agency. I do think that could have some interest in Alshon Jeffrey. They can perhaps get interested in Deshaun Jackson, but I kind of think Deshaun Jackson is going to go back to Philly. So, by the addition of Kirk Cousins, if the 49ers just pull this off and get Kirk Cousins, he makes that offense 5 times better than it would be last year. And I know that 49ers don't have talent. They probably have the least talent. They had the least talented roster in all the league. But, I do think if Kirk Cousins does go to the 49ers, that offense will be so much better. They will not win many games, but I'm telling you right now, they will be a better team. So, the Redskins have until Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to use the franchise tag. And I won't be surprised if the Redskins don't do it, and if they do franchise tag him. All right, well, before I leave, I got to talk about the NFL Combine. It does start today. All the participants, they arrive, the first day of the week. They do a lot of the hospital pre-exams, the x-rays, the orientation testing, all that. But, all the drills don't really start until Thursday, with the bench press, with the workouts for place kickers. And probably the most popular drill to watch on the Combine, or at least everyone that knows, is the 40-yard dash. And Adidas have apparently, they have kind of made it more interesting this year with the 40-yard dash. Well, it appears that Adidas will offer an island to any NFL prospect who breaks the record for the fastest 40-yard dash. That's right, you heard me. They're going to offer an island. An entire island, guys. So, for anyone that breaks the 40-yard time of 4.24, which was done by Chris Johnson in 2008, which is still held to this day. if someone breaks that record, and they do it in the Adidas 2017 Adidas Zero 5-Star 40 cleats, if they do it in those particular shoes, and they agree to endorse the company shoes for the entire 2017-18 season, Adidas will give that man an island. I'm not joking. They're going to get an island. But there is some fine print in this. The fine print says that Adidas agrees to provide a winner with an island, quote, as soon as reasonably possible, end quote. But, you know, the company, Adidas, can also just pay the athlete $1 million instead. So, which is probably going to happen. Like, an entire island, it just blows my mind. But, you know, Eric Dickerson kind of joked around a little bit with this. You know, Eric Dickerson, he's an NFL legend. He owns the NFL single season record for rushing yards. He joked that the potential award is much bigger than what he got when he went for the rushing record in '84. And this is what he tweeted. He's all, that beats the carrot cake Adidas gave me for breaking the NFL single season record. So we got a carrot cake for breaking the single season record. So, you know, over the years, you know, Adidas they've given like endorsement deals to prospects who run the fastest 40 time. You know, they had cash prizes of $100,000, $1 million. That was last year. If someone could have set the mark, you know, that was the prize. So I do think that with Adidas offering a whole entire island, I do think a lot of people will be watching now. Especially, you know, guys that don't really tend to watch the Combine, especially if you're an NFL fan. So on Friday and Saturday, you know, the running backs and receivers will go through the drills, including the 40 times. So those were the guys that will look to break the record. We can also look at defensive backs. I do think they will do the drills, I believe, on Monday. So, yeah, we had to watch the defensive backs as well. So, the Combine drills won't start till Thursday, but everything will start today for players that will arrive. And, we will cover it as best as we can here at the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, well, that's going to do it for me today. I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. You know, you can come back tomorrow. I'll talk about anything that happens over the next 24 hours. Anthony will be back as well. And all I got to say is I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. As always, I'm Jeremiah, and you guys have a great day.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.